Welcome back to Mandate of the Creator, where we explore the wisdom of the Quran and its teachings for humanity. Today, we continue our journey through Surah Al-Baqarah, focusing on verses 50 to 100. This section contains valuable lessons on gratitude, the consequences of disbelief, and the importance of following divine guidance. Let's delve into the interpretation of these verses to better understand the divine message. Segment 1, verses 50 to 54, the story of Moses and Bani Israel. Verses 50 to 54 recount the blessings of Allah upon Bani Israel, particularly during their time under the leadership of Prophet Moses. Allah reminds them of the great miracle when He parted the sea for them to escape Pharaoh's tyranny. Verse 50 describes how Allah saved Bani Israel by splitting the sea. This miracle was both a display of Allah's mercy and a sign of His power. Despite witnessing such a miraculous event, many among Bani Israel still lacked faith. Verse 51 tells how, after this deliverance, Musa went to Mount Sinai to receive divine guidance. But in his absence, the people of Israel fell into error and began worshipping a golden calf, as mentioned in verse 52. Allah, in His infinite mercy, forgave them despite this act of idolatry. However, in verse 53, He reminds them of the covenant He made with them and the Torah as a source of guidance. It was sent to lead them on the straight path. Segment 2, verses 55 to 59, Trials and Lessons for Bani Israel. In verses 55 to 59, Allah narrates further incidents involving Bani Israel, illustrating their rebellious nature and ingratitude despite the clear signs provided to them. Verse 55 recounts how the Israelites demanded to see Allah directly before they would believe. This bold demand led to their destruction, but Allah revived them, showing yet again His forgiveness. In verses 56 and 57, Allah recounts the times He shaded them with clouds and sent down manna and quails for their sustenance. Even with these blessings, they continued to show disobedience. Verse 58 provides an example of Allah's command for the Israelites to enter a city humbly and express gratitude. Instead, they arrogantly altered Allah's words and disregarded His instructions. As a consequence, in verse 59, Allah punished them with a plague for their defiance. These verses emphasize the importance of humility, obedience to divine commands, and gratitude for Allah's blessings. Disobedience leads to consequences, while those who follow the guidance are rewarded. Segment 3, verses 60 to 61. Water for the thirsty and complaints of Bani Israel. Verses 60 and 61 further demonstrate Allah's kindness toward Bani Israel, despite their continued complaints. In verse 60, Allah describes how He provided water for the Israelites by instructing Musa to strike a rock, from which 12 springs gushed forth. This was a blessing tailored to meet the needs of each tribe, yet they continued to rebel. In verse 61, the Israelites, despite receiving food from the heavens, complained and demanded ordinary food like vegetables and lentils. Musa admonishes them for their ingratitude, pointing out that such luxuries are available in any city, yet they chose to disrespect Allah's bounty. Consequently, they were struck with humiliation and divine punishment. These verses remind us of the dangers of ingratitude. Allah provided for them directly, yet their constant demands reflect a lack of appreciation. For believers today, these verses serve as a reminder to be content with Allah's provision. Segment 4, verses 62 to 64. Salvation for believers and the covenant. Verses 62 to 64 offer hope and guidance for those who sincerely seek Allah's mercy. Verse 62 emphasizes that belief in Allah and the Last Day, coupled with righteous deeds, leads to salvation for all, whether one is a Muslim, Jew, Christian, or Sabian. This verse highlights the universal nature of faith, focusing on sincerity and righteous action. Verse 63 revisits the covenant Allah made with Bani Israel, reminding them of the importance of upholding their commitments. This covenant was a source of great responsibility, yet many disregarded it. In verse 64, Allah warns them of the consequences of turning away from their covenant. However, Allah, in His mercy, continues to give opportunities for repentance. These verses emphasize that salvation is based on belief in Allah, the Day of Judgment, and righteous action. It is not exclusive to a specific group, but available to all sincere believers. Segment 5, verses 65 to 66, the Sabbath breakers and their punishment. In verses 65 and 66, Allah mentions the story of the Sabbath breakers among Bani Israel. In verse 65, Allah warns of those who transgressed His command by violating the sanctity of the Sabbath. As a punishment, Allah transformed them into apes, making them a lesson for others, as mentioned in verse 66. This transformation serves as a reminder of the seriousness of disobedience to Allah's laws. Those who mock divine commands face severe consequences. Segment 6, verses 67 to 71, the story of the cow and lessons of obedience. Verses 67 to 71 narrate the famous incident that gives Surah Al-Baqarah its name, the story of the cow. In verse 67, Allah commands Bani Israel, through Musa, to sacrifice a cow. However, they question this command repeatedly, showing their reluctance to follow Allah's instructions without hesitation. Verses 68 to 71 describe how Bani Israel continued to ask for more details about the cow, hoping to avoid fulfilling the command. They were eventually told to sacrifice a specific cow, yet their reluctance and doubt are evident throughout the narrative. This story illustrates the importance of obedience to Allah without unnecessary questioning or hesitation. The constant questioning of Bani Israel reflects their lack of faith, while believers are encouraged to trust in Allah's wisdom. Segment 7, verses 72 to 82, lessons on justice, hypocrisy, and the hereafter. Verses 72 to 82 touch on the themes of justice, hypocrisy, and accountability in the hereafter. Verse 72 recounts an incident where Bani Israel were involved in a murder, and Allah used the sacrificed cow to reveal the truth. This miracle demonstrated Allah's justice and power. From verses 73 to 74, Allah describes the hardened hearts of the Israelites, warning that some people's hearts become so rigid that even miracles fail to change them. In verses 75 to 82, Allah addresses the hypocrisy of those who claim to believe yet distort divine messages and ignore their own scriptures. These verses highlight that merely following rituals or claiming faith is not enough. True belief requires sincerity and adherence to divine commandments. These verses emphasize the importance of sincerity in faith, justice, and accountability. They serve as a warning to avoid hypocrisy and encourage believers to act justly and with compassion. As we've seen from these verses, Surah Al-Baqarah is filled with timeless lessons on gratitude, faith, and obedience to Allah. The stories of Bani Israel serve as warnings and reminders for all of us to stay humble, grateful, and true to our covenant with Allah. Thank you for joining us on this journey. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more deep dives into the Quran and its profound guidance. Until next time, may Allah guide us all on the straight path.